Chapter 107. Mission well done. Summary. Finally, the raid is over. Sure, the final details have to be ironed out after their last-minute revelation, but it'll be fine. It's fine. It's gonna be fine. Right? Denki asks, nervously wringing his hands together. Because this wasn't part of the plan. How can we fly off and leave those people when there's a bunch of Trellin in the forest waiting for us to leave? Calm down, dunce-face. Katsuki huffs. The idiot had a habit of working himself up before stopping to actually think about the problem. He and Deku were the same there, and Katsuki had practiced snapping the nerd out of his own doom spirals. Stop blabbering and think for a second. You're right, Chargebolt. This wasn't part of the plan, but Eraser had said that things don't go to plan most of the time. I'm honestly surprised this is the first big thing that went wrong. Deku rambles. He's trying to play it off, but he's definitely stressed about the issue in their plan. The scanner thing makes a soft plunk as Mei bundles it back up in her bag. Without our baby working, we can't be sure the area is safe before we go. So we just need to minimize the chance of someone getting in between the time we leave and the time the Galactic Alliance gets here. At least she wasn't freaking out about this like the other two. Yeah, okay, you're right. Deku nods. We've already secured all the entrances pretty well, though we should strengthen them just in case. The main factor is probably time. We need to make it so they're left alone for the least amount of time possible. Which is a problem, because we need to be long gone when the space cops show up. Katsuki points out. Denki scrunches his eyebrows, sending wrinkles rippling across his forehead. It's a balancing act. What's the latest we can leave where the chance of the space government spotting us is low enough? Yeah. Mei waved off. That bit's easy. We'll need to go over some calculations and probably run a few simulations. Denki and I can handle that. In the meantime, another risk mitigation tactic is you two clearing out as many Trellin as you can. You'll take down the number of hostiles after we leave and, hopefully, scare the remaining ones off for a while. Now that, Katsuki can do. You ready for round 2, nerd? Well, it's not exactly round 2. The first time was more like tag. Deku's grin sharpened. This is more like hide-and-seek tag. Katsuki was already making his way to the edge of the building. Whoever catches the most fuckers wins. A green blur flew off the roof beside him. You're on! Deku shouted as he rocketed off the building, Katsuki following right behind. Okay, got it, Mina confirms, tapping her comm to switch her mic off. Well, that kinda sucks, Ochako sighs. Things were going so well. Mina giggles at the other girl's pout. Aw, come on. Just think of this as an opportunity to play chicken with the government. And it's not like the Trellin have a chance at getting in here with Mei and Denki on defense. I guarantee that there will be booby traps, and said booby traps will be very explosive. A murmur makes its way through the group behind them, unease rippling through the crowd. Shoot, they were speaking Japanese, but they didn't exactly have an equivalent to Trellin. Given that's the only thing anyone here could understand, that must be the reason for the sudden change. Let's update everyone on what's going on here, Mina decides. Better not to leave them wondering what they're talking about. They should know that we won't be able to get all the villains before they decide whether or not they want to wait for the GA. Brown hair bounces as Ochako nods. We can probably start preparing those who want to go on the ship. They shouldn't need many supplies. The next populated planet is a few systems away, so I'd guess they'd need 2 days' worth of food. Mina wished she could go grab what they need right away, but that meant either breaking their buddy system rule or leaving the trafficked aliens alone. Neither of which were an option. We'll have to ask Mei and Danks to swing by the cafeteria on their way back. All right, Ochako says, turning her body to the group as she speaks to Mina. We should see how many people we'll need to pick up food for. Seamlessly, switching to basic, Ochako projects her voice to the crowd. Everyone, we hope you've had time to think about which option you'd like to pick. 2 of our crew are hunting down the remaining Trellin as we speak, but there's no way to know if they catch them all. Because of that, 2 more of our people are securing the entrances with traps. We'll all try to stay as long as we can before the Galactic Alliance shows up, but we can't say they'd be very happy seeing us here. So with that in mind, raise your hand if you want to wait for the Alliance. Hands down if you want to leave on the ship upstairs. After a few moments of silence, the Pink Slug Queen raised her hand, rather flamboyantly. That seemed to be all that people were waiting for, and soon, about 2/3 of the group had their hands in the air. Mina took note that the 3 aquatic aliens were not amongst that number. With the way she remembered their pod speaking of the Alliance, it was no surprise they didn't trust the organization to get them home. Okay, those of you leaving on the ship, please move over to the elevator, Ochako continued. You won't be able to leave until we're able to secure some food and water for everyone, but it's a good idea to talk about everyone's plans here. And first things first, you should probably decide on a pilot. Without a word, the group moved to comply, splitting into one smaller group and one larger. The ones waiting to be picked up settled in, some sitting and even lying down on the concrete floor, while the others talked quietly amongst themselves. Denki watched as the ship flew further and further away, disappearing into the lightening night sky. Turning away from the sight, he took another bite at the odd protein bar he'd confiscated from the mess hall. It was a little odd to think about the small group of people flying off, escaping the traffickers in a stolen spacecraft, and heading for the closest planet with people. It was almost like looking back in time when they'd been at the start of their journey. And done, Mei grinned, setting down a pair of wire cutters next to the elevator entrance. Denki eyed her suspiciously. He was seriously concerned about the safety and stability of some of the traps she had set up, and this last one was no exception. You sure that thing won't blow up the others when they leave? Denki asked. Mei waved her hand dismissively. It's not armed yet. They'll be fine. And it's not gonna blow up the space cops either? Not as long as the aliens inside pull the string to disable it when they get here, she said, and Denki did not find that comforting. The comms crackled and Izuku's voice came through. ETA on the Galactic Alliance? His breaths were heavy. Humming, Mei glanced at the laptop open on the sealed vent. 40 minutes, she stated. Hear that, nerd? Time's almost up, and I'm still in the lead, Katsuki gloated. A small explosion following that was audible in the distance as well as over the comms. Are you going to be back soon, Deku? If we want to make it far enough away before the Alliance gets here, we should leave soon, Ochako commented. 5 more minutes? Izuku asked, sounding like Denki when he tried to squeeze out a few more minutes of whatever video game had his attention that week. Ochako made a sound of approval. Okay, but you better be on the roof in 5 minutes. Not exactly in the mood to be chased by cops today. Speaking from experience, Pink Cheeks? Katsuki asked. More like speaking from my stomach. I need a good faceplant in the nest after this, and that lie down does not include Denki's evasive maneuvers. Denki let out an exaggerated gasp of offense, but left it at that. He was a pretty decent pilot, but he didn't provide the smoothest ride. He spent the next 5 minutes staring out at the glowing dots on the plants. They almost looked like stars twinkling in the distance. Mina and Ochako arrived with the confirmation that everyone was ready for their leave, just before Izuku and Katsuki. Mei took no time at all arming the last trap, and with that, they were tearing off through the forest. On their way there, they'd had to be sneaky. But now, Denki jumped up to grab a twisting branch and used it to swing himself forward to the next. The clearing was coming into view just up ahead, so he pushed himself harder, using the tangled trunks like monkey bars to get himself to the ground. Izuku was already opening the door manually with Black Whip, so when he pried it open far enough, Denki slipped in first and made a beeline to the console. He reached under the main panel, letting his fingers find the switch that powered the ship back on. A low rumble sprang to life from the ship as the lights came back on. A squeak noise came from the center of the room, and Denki turned to see Beatrice rising from the nest with a dazed expression. "Sorry if that woke you up," he said to the bee. "Less bee, more flea," Ochako said, slipping into her seat by the nav console. Denki smiled and turned back to the control panel. It was second nature now to start the takeoff procedure, the engine making a rumble as they started back up before fading into the background. "We're just waiting on Mina," Izuku said, as he plopped down into his seat beside Denki. "She is trying to figure out how to grab a plant." Just as he said that, Mina bounded into the ship with an uprooted fern in hand. The little dots lining its leaves were lacking the glow the forest displayed. But Denki figured that was probably because it was just evicted from its nice little dirt home. "Got it! It was a real fighter. I had to use my acid to disconnect the roots when they wouldn't let up like a meter deep." Katsuki booted up his station, relaxing once the weapons were at his command. Yeah, let's just get a move on." "Get ready for takeoff," Denki called, gripping the steering and raising the ship from the ground. The sun was truly beginning to show itself, a white glow stretching across the sky as they rose. Hopefully, that would make it easier for the space police to find any stragglers in the forest. Though given Katsuki had bagged 5 all on his own, he wasn't sure how many could be left. It was good to know that all the Trellin down there would be facing justice for what they'd done. Guys? Do you see that?" Mina suddenly asked, leaning over the console to point out the front window. Following her finger down, Denki found the clearing they had been parked in. Nothing seemed out of place at first, but then he noticed the forest, how it seemed to be shifting, almost writhing around it. It flashed 4 times, the glowing spots brightening all around it. From beside him, still cradled in Mina's arms, the dots on the fern flashed right back. And suddenly, the forest moved, winding trunks flooding the once clear space and taking it in their domain. It almost seemed like the forest was trying to grow upwards, as if to reach them. No one spoke as they left the planet's atmosphere, though Denki did glance to make sure the forest around the way stop wasn't consuming any more ground. "That was definitely a shit-your-pants monster kind of way," Katsuki stated. "Whoops," Izuku chuckled awkwardly. Mina, seemingly unfazed, raised her once again dormant fern aloft and stated, "I think I'll call you Gerald." "Gerald?" Katsuki asked reluctantly, looking like he was 3 seconds away from throwing the plant out of the ship, no matter that there was currently no atmosphere outside. "Yes, but say it right. Gerald."